It is Tuesday, October the 3rd, and on This Is the Buddy Dill Show. A lot of stuff going on right now. So it is October, which means playoff baseball starts, and it starts tonight. 4 wild card games tonight. It'll be a 3-game series, but first we're going to get to what happened last night in Monday Night Football. It was a very, very ugly game. That is the nicest way to say it. Geno Smith played okay, threw for only 120 yards and a touchdown. He did leave the game in the second quarter, stayed out till halftime and came back. I think there was a little bit of a ankle issue. He got tackled kind of awkwardly on the sideline. He wasn't a huge fan of the hit. He called it dirty. He said it was no place in the league for that. He wasn't a big fan of it. Daniel Jones looked really, really bad, and that's the best way I can say it. I think it's about time for the Giants to really consider whether or not he's the answer, and I just don't think he is. However, it's the same problem that they had whenever Eli was there, and it's not all his fault. His offensive line is horrible. Now, Daniel doesn't help himself, but his offensive line doesn't help him at all. I mean, he was sacked 11 times last night. That doesn't happen in the NFL. It shouldn't happen in the NFL if you have linemen that are good enough that can hold blocks at all. But he got sacked 11 times. He did throw 2 interceptions, and he also fumbled. But he's lost 24 fumbles since 2019, his first year in the league. That is the most in the league by far. I will tell you who did play well last night. It was rookie Devon Witherspoon. He had 2 sacks. He had 2 tackles for loss. He had 7 total tackles. He also had a pick 6. He really filled in for Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams returned last night from his torn ACL that he suffered in the first game last year. It was his first game back. He made it 9 snaps, and he had to come out after taking a Daniel Jones knee to his head. He left the game because of concussion. I assume he'll probably be back either next week or the week after that. The Seahawks are really looking to get him back. However, Devon Witherspoon was a big help. This Seahawks team moves to 4-1. The Giants fall to 1-3. There's a long. I'm sorry. The Giants are 0-4. That's right, because they don't have it. It's not a very good team. Saquon Barkley did not play. He's been banged up. It's probably because of the offensive line. The offensive line's just not been able to help him. The defense isn't a bad defense, but there's just only so much they can do. But Geno has been playing well. DK Metcalf had a solid game. He caught a touchdown. Tyler Lockett's always really good. And Kenneth Walker had him a solid game as well. They're going to be fine. They're going to compete with the 49ers for the NFC West. I don't think they'll be able to pass them, but I think they're going to keep it competitive. But that's about it for Monday Night Football. There wasn't a whole lot else to talk about. It just wasn't a very pretty game. But let's get to baseball, because it's October, and I can't wait for these games. First one today is going to be the Rangers at the Rays. That game is going to be at 3:08 Eastern Time on ABC. All these wild card games are 3-game best of 3 series. All of these games are at the higher seed on their park, so all these games will be in Tampa Bay. The probable pitchers for tonight, for the Rangers, you're going to have Jordan Montgomery, who's 10-11 and with a 3.20 ERA. He's had a solid year. He's a left-handed guy. He's really the only left-handed guy you're going to have pitching in these wild card matchups, I think. For Tampa Bay, you have Cillian Murphy. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Tyler Glasnow. But he's 10-7 on the year. He is 3.53 ERA. He's been really good for the Rays this year. Throws hard, tall, skinny, throws really hard, has good off-speed stuff. This should be a fun matchup. And there's a couple. Both these teams are really good. Both these teams have over 95 wins. This is a really kind of an unfortunate wild card matchup because both of these teams could compete for a World Series, but obviously only one of them are going to move forward after this. Players to watch out for the Rangers, you got to watch out for Corey Seager. He's had a really solid year. He's batting .327 with 33 home runs and 96 RBIs. He, on a team that hasn't played a whole lot of playoff games because the Rangers haven't been in the playoffs very much. He is a veteran. He's a playoff veteran. He's been there with the Dodgers. He knows what it's like to be in these kinds of games. I think he's a really important player to watch out for. He needs to have a good game. He needs to have a good series, actually. For the Rays, it's Randy Arozarena. He basically single-handedly got them to the World Series back in 2020. He's had a decent year, a little bit down year for him. He's batting .254 with 23 home runs and 83 RBIs. But the main thing is that he has that playoff experience too. He's been able to make big-time plays in big situations. And so I would expect him to make some more in this best-of-3 series. The other AL wildcard series is going to be the Blue Jays at the Twins. That game tonight, game 1, is at 4:38 p.m. Eastern Time. That is games on ESPN. Once again, the Twins are an interesting one because they actually have the worst record out of all the AL playoff teams, but they won their division, so they're going to host. The Blue Jays have been solid. They played really well. They've been in the tough AL East. They fought their way through it and made it to the playoffs, and they're there. Probable pitchers tonight for the Blue Jays, you got Kevin Gausman. He is 12-9 this year with a 3.16 ERA. He's pitched really well. For the Twins, it's going to be Pablo Lopez, 11-8 on the year, 3.66 ERA. Both of them are going to have to put up with solid lineups. I think I would give this advantage a little bit to the Blue Jays just because they have a little bit more in the tank for their offense. One of those guys to watch is George Springer. Really similar to what I was just saying about Corey Seager. This team is loaded. You have Vlad Guerrero, you have Bo Bichette, you have Kevin Kiermaier, who's been in a lot of in big games. But George Springer has been that guy for the Astros during their run where he was playing in big time games. He knows what it's like to be here. He's had a really good year. He batted .327 with 21 home runs and 72 RBIs. Remember, that's out of the leadoff spot. So he gets on base and also drives in runs out of the leadoff spot. Don't be surprised to see him hit a leadoff home run in this series. For the Twins, I'm going to watch out for Max Kepler. He's had a solid year, batted .260, 24 home runs and 66 RBIs. The Minnesota's problem right now is their injuries. They have been hit with the injury bug this year. Carlos Correa has been out. He has not played since September. He is expected to play. We will see what happens, though. Royce Lewis is, I think, questionable. Byron Buxton, I don't think is going to play either so that really leaves a lot of question marks for the Twins. Not only that, the Twins have lost 18 straight playoff games, which they would love to end that streak, but they're going to need a little bit of help this week from some guys that are relatively unknown. In the NL, we got the Diamondbacks at the Brewers. This game is going to be at 7:08 Eastern Time on ESPN2. Your pitchers in this matchup in Game 1 are probably going to be Brandon Pfaff. He is 3-7 with a 5.72 ERA. This is an interesting one for me for the Diamondbacks. I'm not really 100% sure why I'm going with him, but maybe he can prove something that we're not really sure about. My guess is that they were trying to fight so hard to get into the playoffs to clinch a wild card seed that they probably had to use some pitchers that they would like to start in this game, but they're probably not ready. The Brewers have had plenty of time to rest. They're going to start their guy, Corbin Burns. However, Brandon Woodruff this is a big news. Brandon Woodruff will not pitch in the wild card series, and it's very likely that he will not pitch the entire postseason. That's a big loss for the Brewers because he is by far their best pitcher. But he's going to be sorely missed for the Brewers. Corbin Burns is 10-8 on the year. He has a 3.39 ERA. He's a solid pitcher. Don't get me wrong, but he's just not quite the same as Brandon Woodruff. So we will see what if he can make up for that. For players to watch in this one, Arizona, he's a rookie, but he's been insanely good. Corbin Carroll, he can fly. He does everything well. He hits for average, hits for power, and he also runs. Like I said, he's got 285 average this year, 25 home runs, 76 RBIs, and he also has 54 stolen bases. That's a lot of help from all the new rules this year, but that's a really, really high number. For the Brewers, Christian Yelich needs to have a good series. He's a veteran on this team. He's been around the block. He's been everywhere. He's played in big games. He has to have a good series. He's batting .278 on the year with only 19 home runs, which is low for him. This is a little bit of a down year. He only has 76 RBIs as well, but he needs to step it up in the postseason if he wants the Brewers to have any chance of advancing and especially making a run deep into the postseason. The last NL wildcard series is going to be the Marlins at the Phillies. This game is at 8:08 p.m. Eastern Time. That game is going to be found on ESPN. For the pitching matchup for the Miami Marlins, expect Jesus Luzardo. He is 10-9 with a 3.63 ERA. He's had a really solid year. But I would give the pitching matchup to the Phillies right now. Zach Wheeler's been really good as well. He's 13-6 with a 3.61 ERA. He's really, like I said, he's had a really solid year. That really sets up well for the Phillies. I believe Aaron Nola will probably be the game 2 guy, which is who you would want. However, the Marlins did catch a break. Luis Arias has been a little bit banged up lately, but he will play in this series. He led the MLB this year. With batting average, he batted at .354, which is insanely high the last few years, especially. Doesn't really hit for power, but he gets on base and is able to drive in runs when there are people on base. He has 69 RBIs, only 10 home runs. For the Phillies, it's their man, it's their guy, it's their heart and soul of this team. It's Bryce Harper. He's had a really, really solid year coming off of a torn UCL. He's only DH this year, which has worked fine for him. He's played a little bit of first base, but mainly have been in DH. He's batted .293 this year with only 21 home runs, which is low for him. But like I said, he's coming off a torn UCL, so I'm not going to fault him very much. And 72 RBIs. He had a lot of big hits last year in their postseason run, when they made it all the way to the World Series. I expect him to continue that trend. I think that he will have some more big time hits this week and in the next month. Watch out for the Phillies. They've gotten really hot at the right time. They're going to be a team to beat in the NL. So there's one thing about the wild card. You need to win the first game. This wild card series has only been going on this is only the third year it's happened. They tried it out in 2020 during the COVID season just to see what it was like. Went back to the old one-game wild card in 2021, but came back to this series in 2022. This year they've added more teams though, so there's 8 teams in the wild card now instead of 4 like it was last year. But the main thing is that the winner of Game 1 wins the series 83% of the time, and not only that, there's only been 3 wild card series go 3 games out of the 12 possible ones. So you need to win Game 1. The winner of Game 1 is more than likely going to win the series. It's just that way. And like I said, the first game is huge. That's why it really pays dividends if you have your pitcher exactly lined up how you want it to. That's why I'm going to give a little bit of an advantage to the Phillies here. I'm going to give an advantage to the Brewers and also the Blue Jays and the Rangers and Rays is really interesting because those are 2 really good pitchers. So I'm not sure exactly where that will go, but all right, let's moving on. It is Tuesday. I'm going to do one every week. It is Top 10 Tuesdays. I'm going to give you my personal top 10 in the college football world and also my top 10 power rankings in the NFL. These are not like the same as the AP poll, just because half the time I think the AP poll are wrong. So first, I'm going to lead off with college football. My number 1 team this week is Michigan. They've looked really complete. They've done everything they're supposed to do. I know they haven't played anybody, but they've looked really good while they've done it. My number 2 is going to be Texas. They had a good week this week against Kansas. They have the win of the year so far, in my opinion, at Alabama. That win's starting to look a little bit better if we see down on my list right here. I'm going to drop Georgia all the way to number 3. they did not look very good against a bad Auburn team. Auburn can't move the ball, and Auburn had a chance to score to tie the game at the end. I think Georgia needs to figure some stuff out on offense and especially and on defense. I think that they're not quite where they want to be right now, so I'm going to drop them right now. But don't be surprised if they come out next week and play really well against Kentucky. This is probably going to decide the SEC East this week. They have Kentucky. Don't be surprised to see them back at number 1 if they have a good week. My number 4 is going to be Penn State. They've just looked like one of the most complete teams in the country. Their offense is solid. Their defense is really good. Struggled against Northwestern in the first half. They were really close there, but they were able to hit another gear and pull away from them. So I think I'm going to have them at 4. Florida State did not play this week, but they're going to stay at 5. They didn't do anything to hurt themselves. So same thing for Ohio State. I'm going to have them at 6. They didn't play this week either, and they have a couple big games coming up. But Washington, in my own personal rankings last week, I had them at number 5. They struggled this week against Arizona, so I'm going to have them drop back. Plenty of opportunities to come back and jump up in there just because they're going to play some really good games later in this year. Oregon looked really good again this week, but they're going to stay at number 8. Like I said, same thing. Plenty of opportunities to jump up. They got some big games coming up, and I'm not going to be shocked at all if I see them move up in the top 5. Alabama joins the top 10 again, in my opinion. Look, they are now currently, after the Ole Miss win, they're the only undefeated team in the West when it comes to conference play. They are the team to beat. Jalen Milroe looked really, really good against Mississippi State. They might be figuring out a winning formula with him. They might be figuring out, hey, let's not try to drop back and throw it 50 times a game. Let's just run the ball down people's throats and make them take it and throw when we have to. He only threw the ball 12 times against Mississippi State. Maybe that's the way to go. And my number 10 is Notre Dame. Solid win against Duke going into their place. It's always a good time to win a top 10 road game or a top 15 road game. Just the only reason I have them so this low is because they just didn't look great while they did it. But that is what it is. So that's my top 10 in college football. You got Michigan, Texas, Georgia, Penn State, Florida State, Ohio State, Washington, Oregon, Alabama, and Notre Dame. Moving on to the NFL. This is some of these teams are maybe a little bit higher than they probably should be, but I think they're the best teams, just straight up best teams. My number 1 is the Chiefs. They've, ever since they had Kelsey and Chris Jones back, they've looked like the old Chiefs that we know. Did struggle a little bit this week against the Jets. But Patrick Mahomes had a really, really bad game, and we just know he's not going to have those anymore. Speaking of quarterbacks that really turned it around from the first week, Josh Allen has looked like a completely different player after playing the Jets. Maybe it's the Jets defense that's making these good quarterbacks struggle. But the Bills have looked insanely good since then. I'm going to have them at the second best team in the league. Both of those teams were 3-1. But the Eagles are 4-0, so why are the Eagles not at number 1? They just haven't really looked as good and as dangerous as the other two have. That's the only reason why. There's no doubt that they can win a lot of games this year, and they can probably make another run to the Super Bowl just because they have the talent there. I just think that the other two teams are a little bit better. Same thing goes with number 4 team, the 49ers, because they have the talent, no doubt about it. But Brock Purdy still just leaves me with a couple question marks. They're 4-0. He doesn't lose many regular season games. He hasn't yet. I think that he's a good quarterback. I think he's going to be fine, but I just still want to see a little bit more from him, especially when it gets closer to November and December, and we'll move him up pretty quickly. I had Miami at number 1 last week, but they looked really poor against the Bills. Their defense couldn't stop anything. They need to figure out some defense, and then I'll move them right back up. Cowboys defense returned, and I'm going to have them at number 6. They put up, if you want a good fantasy defense, the Cowboys are them. And that's who you need. They score a lot of touchdowns, but the Cowboys are fine. They're not the greatest team in the league, but they're pretty solid. So I'm gonna have them at 6. Speaking of another really solid team, I got the Detroit Lions at number 7. Jared Goff's played really well this year. Dan Campbell's pushed all the right buttons. And this is a team to beat in the NFC North, and I'm really excited for them because I like Dan Campbell a lot. I like Jared Goff because he's been kind of pushed out of L.A. with the Rams and was just left for dead, and the Lions picked him up, and he's really resurged his career there. The Seahawks looked really good last night. It was sloppy, but they were just able to win games, especially with a lot of injuries on defense. Their secondary did not give up anything, and they're banged up in that spot. Geno Smith being a little banged up is a little worrisome, but I think he'll be fine. But they look really good. Beat a bad Giants team exactly how they're supposed to do. So the Seahawks are going to be number 8. At number 9, I got the Bucks. They won a big game this week against the Saints. I wasn't expecting it. I thought the Saints would win and move ahead to lead the NFC South. But now the Bucks are 3-1 with Baker Mayfield as their quarterback. They're 3-1 and lead the NFC South. So good for them. And number 10, I got the Baltimore Ravens. Lamar Jackson is the most electric player in the league, and he's just making things happen for the Ravens. So they've won 3. They're 3-1. They're a really good team. They're leading the AFC North. They beat a banged up Browns team, but they did it exactly how they're supposed to. So yeah, that's my top 10. I got the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, 49ers, Dolphins, Cowboys, Lions, Seahawks, Bucks, and Ravens. But other than that, that's just going to about cover it this week, just because, we got a lot of stuff to talk about tomorrow. We're going to give you some recaps of the games that happened tonight in the MLB, get you ready for game 2s tomorrow, and maybe even throw out some good bets to take tomorrow. So other than that, thank y'all again for joining into the Buddy Dill Show, and we will see you tomorrow.